TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot.
Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for a good friend and colleague who I am jealous as bleep right now. A big weekend planned at the Circa. It's contest weekend, and if you've never spent a weekend in Vegas during contest weekend, well, put it in your calendar for next year. It's must to your bucket list. But before we get to Sean Alvarez, and later today, 3 o'clock, the return of the NCAA Insiders. Good friend and colleague of mine and Sean's, Mr. Matt Grissom, potentially Quentin Mills. The NCAA Insiders talking SEC football and, of course, college football. So Matt will be at the Circa, and I will be jealous there too. So anyways, shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. Of course, it's WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded the app, head on over to Google Play, wherever you download the apps. It's free, and I promise you, myself, Travers, Zach, the rest of this team will take great care of you for the rest of 2024, 2025, and beyond. Shout out to Viva Tequila, Seltzer, CT Bets, the rest of the team, the family there. Great tequila seltzer. Head down to where you go watch your games. Ask them for a Viva. If they don't have them, ask them why. And if they do have it, try the new flavor, coconut. We're cuckoo for coconut here at ECSI. And our new proud sponsor, good friend, Mr. Terry Smith from Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. We'll be bringing him on weekly now to talk some Atlanta Braves, talk some Georgia Bulldogs, but we're going to be talking steaks, New York strip, sirloin, talking lobster tails, salmon. The list is endless. I get it all the time. Puts Omaha steaks to shame, I promise you. So without further ado, we're talking Travers here. Travers Stakes. We're talking Saratoga. None other than Mr. Sean Alvarez himself. What's up, Sean?
Oh, I must have, been a veterinarian or something to get the good karma in a previous life for my life now, because, I was lucky enough to hang out with our friends, Kelly and Brett and our good friend CT Betts last weekend. Now we have Grissom in town this weekend with, everybody sporting their Circa Millions blue blazer. So last night was a great night, and I know that it's only going to get better for the weekend. And I'm a little bit jealous that you get to talk to Matt this weekend or a little bit later, because I was with him last night kind of setting up his Radio Row setup. And it looks great and definitely looks a lot different than my baseball cards behind me.
Well, we know all about your baseball cards, and it looks great there. So Trust me, you're exactly where you're supposed to be till later today and the rest of the weekend. So, some races happened last weekend. Jocks getting hot, jocks cooling down, trainers, owners. What'd you see last weekend as we're getting closer to the finale at Saratoga and, of course, the Travers this week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to, harp on the same thing that we've been talking about kind of all summer with Saratoga going, but you really just kind of have to keep your eye on Dylan Davis. He's not necessarily getting the best mounts that we've talked about with, the likes of Irad Ortiz or Flavian Pratt, always kind of getting that first call, but he's making all the right decisions, whether he needs to cut the corner to save ground or, go wide with his horse having momentum. But I mean, Dylan Davis is, I believe he's third in the standings with, like I said, not nearly the quality of horses that the top jocks are getting. And yet he's sitting there in third in standings and winning at good prices. So I don't think there's a lot to take away from that other than, maybe I'm a little bit down on what Flavian's doing in Saratoga. I do think he's a great jockey and he's going to figure it out, but maybe not necessarily lean on Flavian as much and definitely always at least look at, the horses that Dylan Davis is riding, because not only is he winning, but he's winning at 5, 6, 7 to 1. And, we've talked about it before. It's not necessarily swallowing, the juice of betting, the Braves or, betting a -3 in the NFL and getting that, -110. You're getting plus 700 if it's 7 to 1. So it's definitely something to keep in mind because, like I said, he's making all the right decisions. And when you're making all the right decisions, that's what you want in a jockey, to make the right calls. We're not necessarily, we can all armchair quarterback from the, from the replays and whatnot. But, riding a 1,400-pound animal at 35 miles an hour with other giant animals around you is not the easiest thing to do. And he's doing it at a high clip at big prices. So definitely keep an eye on what Dylan Davis is doing at Saratoga.
It's been a month, 6 weeks, however long. I did see a tweet yesterday. Maybe you can follow up on it. That Saratoga potentially next year running from June through August or July through August. Is that correct?
So I haven't seen that tweet yet, but keep in mind that Belmont's still closed next year. So Remember back to, the Belmont Stakes where they ran that at Saratoga and then oddly went back to Aqueduct before they went up to Saratoga. So if that's right, I haven't seen the tweet yet, but if that's right, it makes all the sense in the world. Let's keep the horses up there. Let's just ship them up there, a little bit early. We don't need to ship them up to upstate New York and then back to Aqueduct. Obviously you and I are not doing Friday shows talking about the stakes races at Aqueduct. So take that for what it's worth. It's not necessarily, it's a grade A track, if you will, but not necessarily the grade A that is Saratoga and Del Mar.
So sports wagering. We talk about the marathon. We talk about the different day every day. We're coming up on 9 3/4 years. January 1st, 2025 will be our 10-year anniversary. We did a show with good friend Andrew McGinnis. I did a show on his channel on WagerTalk at around 11:15 today. They were talking about the WagerTalk 10-year anniversary. And my point to you is horse racing is different. So if you were a part of the Saratoga meet, you've been there 3-4 weeks, it's a lot different because you got to go to the window and physically rip out the 50s, the 100s, the 20s, and the 10s. So many highs, so many lows. If you get caught up in the rest of that game and you, let's just say, get a little too loose a couple of races or maybe have a couple too many cocktails, you walked in there with 5,000 and you're looking and you got 2,000 left. My point is, as the meet's winding down, you feel beat up. How do you manage that, Sean? You've been doing horses all your life for a long time. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just kind of goes hand in hand with, sports betting, bankroll management, but also, staying within yourself with that, if you're, betting 2 or 3, games a day, whether that be baseball, you don't just turn on, Sunday's card and bet every game. So definitely staying within yourself, but within horse racing, just with, just like, you know, with NFL coming up, there's always props, right? There's always different ways to bet, the Giants versus the 49ers. You can bet, Purdy to score a touchdown. You can bet team total overs. You can bet sides. You can bet money line. And that goes, hand in hand with horse racing. We've got win bets. We've got show bets. We've got place bets. We've got exactas, trifectas. And that's just within the one race. Then we've got doubles, pick threes, pick fours, pick fives. That's definitely the same thing. And, I definitely try to harp on that with people that buy my package. It's, it's a wide range or a wide array of, win bets, it's pick threes, it's exactas, but, I'm not betting every single thing on my card. For me, it's a little bit different because, I like to, dip into the honey pot here, dip into the honey pot there with, maybe a win bet there, pick fives, exactas here and there. But if you're an exacta player, stick to the exactas. If you're a win place player, stick to that. If you're a pick five player, stick to that. You don't need to, just because it's Travers Day tomorrow, suddenly put a $250 pick five in when you're not a pick five player, right? If you're a win player, if you're an exacta player, there's still money to be made here and there, depending on what you like and what you're comfortable in betting. So definitely keep within that bankroll management and keep within yourself of what you like and what you're comfortable with losing. Because like I just talked about with, let's say you've got a 7-1 winner, that's plus 700. You don't need to be at a 55 or 57% clip to break even, where, that's kind of the idea with sports betting with that minus 110 juice. We don't necessarily have that minus 110 juice. It's pari-mutuel. We're betting against me and you. We're not betting against the house. So depending on what you play, we're bringing that down to 20%, 30% to be able to break even as far as when you're how often you're hitting. So it's definitely one of those niches or industries where you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. You have to be comfortable with losing whatever you're betting, because let's be real, we're betting on four-legged animals running in an oval. It's not the easiest thing to do, and pardon my pun, but stuff happens. If you know where I was getting at with the word that I was gonna say, and that happens with horse racing. It happens with horse racing a lot more than it happens with betting. In the Travers, for instance, or I've got the Alan Jerkins up, for instance, instead of the Travers. That's an 11 horse race. In NFL, you're betting against one side or the other. So we're not always gonna be right, and losing definitely happens a little bit more in horse racing. You have to be able to swallow that, and like I said, you have to be able to manage your bankroll and manage your expectations and what you're doing within each and every race card.
Shout out to Miss Amber. Actually, hold on one second here. I just lost. Here we go. Shout out to Amber. Says, hi, Jeff and Sean. Happy Friday, Amber, to the Rage Warrior team and community. The weekend is here, and we couldn't be happier to have you join us alongside us here as we're talking to Sean Alvarez at Smooth Turn 2 and, of course, at WagerTalk. I'm going to pull you up front. We're going to start talking about Saratoga Race 12, the Grade 1 H. Allen Jenkins, sir, okay?
Yeah, so we're gonna go 7 furlongs on the main dirt track, and 7 furlongs is a little bit of a tricky distance because I wouldn't necessarily say it hits the horses right between the eyes, but 7 furlongs is 1 furlong away from a full mile around the track, and that's really the difference between sprint races or sprint horses and routing type horses. So it is a little bit of a different kind of distance to handicap. And with that being said, you don't necessarily want to gun out for the lead. And if you look at what the two Speakeasy at 8-1 did, he was basically on or near the lead in his first maiden victory at Gulfstream Park, but his last time out at Saratoga in an allowance race, he was able to sit off the pace, and they were not going quick. And if you're on the daily racing form past performances, that's what those blue speed figure notes mean in his running style, was they were not going quick for that distance. And excuse me, we've talked about this before. When you have a closer, you really want a pace to run into. You want those leading horses to go quick early and quick often. And they did not do that last time out. And Irad Ortiz and Speakeasy was able to sit off that pace and still close in. And not only close in, but close in running away. The Beyer speed figure didn't come back huge. But it's definitely a Beyer speed figure that is competitive in a race like this. He is going to have to step up to graded stakes company, but I really like what he did in that race. He can be up and near the lead, but there is pace to run into. And if he can run into a softer fractions like he did last time out, I think that he can run into quicker fractions if he sees that tomorrow, like I really think that he will. So my top pick is the 2 Speakeasy at 8-1. And then I kind of go back to more of the favorite in this race is the 8 Bookham Dano at 7-2. This is a horse that definitely is going to be a little bit further back, kind of has that same running style that Speakeasy has, but he hasn't run into soft fractions. If you look at what he did in the Woody Stevens, which was a 7-furlong race at Saratoga, they were cooking early. They went 21-1, 43 flat. I mean, those are just, running your eyeballs out. And he did close in, and he closed in to win the race, but he only won it by a half length, getting a 100 Beyer speed figure, where my top pick Speakeasy ran into soft fractions, won by 2.5 lengths, and did it with a 97 Beyer speed figure. That's only 3 points off of, quote unquote, our favorite in this race. And you look back at who rode Bookham Dano in that race 2 starts back, and that's Irad Ortiz Jr., who, instead of riding this horse, is riding our, my top pick at 8-1. So, like I said, we handicap the horses a lot, but you also got to have to handicap the human connection. And in my opinion, the human connection is Irad Ortiz, who probably had first mount on this and chose to ride the 2 Speakeasy. So kind of gives me an idea of who the jockey likes in this race. And so, far be it for me, I like both these horses. So that's kind of why it leaned me to put the 2 Speakeasy on top instead of the 8 Bookham Dano. And I talked about kind of we don't necessarily want the speed horse in a 7 furlongs race. It's a long distance for, somebody to set the pace, for them to go wire to wire. But that may be the #1 world record. Again, at 8-1, we get a really aggressive rider with Luis Saez, and his hand is kind of forced with getting that rail post. There's not a lot of room for him to take back and then to circle the field. So, like I said, his hand's kind of forced. He should shove from the rail, and let's see if he's good enough. He ran a really good race last time out in the Grade 2 Amsterdam at Saratoga. Now, granted, it was going a half furlong shorter, but the half furlong is not necessarily a big jump up as far as distance goes. And I really do think that Luis is going to gun him from the lead, and we'll just kind of see if he's good enough. And that just brings me to my third pick, the 3 Domestic Product, 9-2. I did talk about that Flavien Prat's not necessarily having the meat that we come to expect out of Flavien Prat, but he is still what I think is the best jockey in the country. And so if you look back at what he did in the Grade 3 Dwyer, now granted it wasn't Aqueduct. I don't necessarily like that track, and it doesn't necessarily hold form traveling up to Saratoga like we're going to see tomorrow. But he won that race by 7.5 lengths. Yes, he was your odds-on favorite, but he definitely has the class and the ability to compete against the likes of these type of horses. And far be it for me to to leave a Flavian Pratt, Chad Brown off my ticket. So I'll round it out with the 3 domestic products. So my picks are going to be the 2 Speakeasy, followed by the 8 Bookham Dano, the number 1 world record, and then the 3 domestic product. And then I guess I'll just jump into my exacta. I'm not trying to get super weird here because, like I said, I do like the number 2 Speakeasy at 8-1. That's a big old price that I like. If he wins, I think it's definitely going to pay. I wouldn't say no matter who comes in second. I would love for it to go 2-1, but I'm going to go 1-2-8 over 1-2-3, 8 and 10. So again, it's 1-2-8 in first, with 1-2-3, 8 and 10 in second, for $1 that only costs $12 to punch. And like I said, I really like the 2 Speakeasy up top. I definitely think that it can pay, especially if he wins. And if the 1 wires it, that's another 8-1. I don't think that a lot of people are going to bet the 1 world record 8-1. We may see 10-1. So it definitely puts us in a position where we can cash big with just a $12 exact.
Are you expecting a speed duel, or are you expecting they're just going to let one of these guys go and then they're going to pace behind it?
I mean, it's an elongated sprint race, so I definitely think there's going to be pace up there. I don't think they're going to necessarily leave the 1 alone, but again, we're talking about an 8-1 that, there's definitely reasons why other jockeys think that the 1's going to come back. So, we've talked about it before where, we think it's a speed duel, but, if Saez guns out front, other jockeys don't necessarily want to take their horse out of the race and just shove their horse up front. So it may be to the point where we see Saez in the 1 world record on, on a length or a length and a half lead. But I do think we're going to be cooking up front. And that really plays into why I like the 2 Speakeasy as my top pick.
You saw it right there. Exacta 1-2-8 with 1-2-3 8-10, a $12 punch there. As we get to the Travers here, I've told you, I've told anyone that wants to listen here. I grew up at a dog track, about 45 minutes away. Raynham Taunton dog tracks. Dogs were huge here, right down about 40 minutes down the road was Wonderland. From there was Plain Ridge, and that's where I grew up. And then I don't want to say graduated, but always was a dog fan. Now they've just faded off in the sunset. And then, of course, now the horses. And when I look at a program, now I'm just a numbers guy. I follow the tote board, any late money in the the New York tracks, the funny money, I like to call it. It happens in California too. But, usually I can get a good wink and a sign there. But my point is, when you open up a race and your horse, for instance, has his post position, and his last race he ran a bullet and he won by 5 lengths. I'm talking about the Travers here. And I'm talking about fierceness in the 8 spot, and then there's Torpedo Anna in the 1 spot. I mean, someone with deep pockets, I swear to God, would just go to the window and do an exacta box 1/8 for $5,000, because on paper, I know there's a lot of good horses here. I do. But on paper, when you get the racing form and you're looking at it for the average person, isn't that what they're going to see?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, we're 100% going to start, see specific exacta will pays or probable will pays with maybe Torpedo Anna and Fierceness. Maybe we're going to see a little bit of Dornock since Dornock won that last race at Monmouth in the Grade 1 Haskell, but we're definitely going to see that. And so, you're right, because, it's how are we going to get paid in a race kind of thing. If the whole world sees 1-2 over, 1/2 or 2/1, and we see the same thing, how are we going to get paid, right? Is it something where we need to skip the race, or do we need to get weird? We've talked about this, in previous shows where, maybe we get a little bit of weird in a trifecta, or a superfecta, or, key somebody in second. What about, with Rich Strike? I'm blanking on who came in second, or who was running in those races, but I specifically remember talking with you saying, I know that these horses are going to come in second. They are not winning in this race. So who is going to win the race? Now, obviously, I didn't have Rich Strike. I mean, I think when we talked about that race, Rich Strike wasn't even in the field. So, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But, it's definitely to the point where you have to look at the race and figure out how do we get a little weird? Where do we go to get paid? So, yeah, I definitely agree with you.
All right, I'm going to try not to butcher this one. We're going to bring you front and stage. Saratoga, race 13, the grade 1 Travers. And let me see if I don't butcher this here.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've talked about it. We talked about it at the beginning of the meet. We've talked about it on Twitter and whatnot. Everybody's looking forward to Torpedo Anna going against the boys. The Travers is not a males-only race, but it usually only male horses run in these type of races. So it's definitely nice to see, the upper echelon of the fillies with the one Torpedo Anna. And I definitely think that they're going to cook up front. They're going to go quick. They're going to go quick early, but the same thing goes where, sometimes class prevails. And what have we seen Torpedo Anna do? She has gone quick early. In the Acorn, she was on, or at least in touch with, a 46-3, 110-1 type pace. They were moving. What did she do? She ran away from the field by 5.5 lengths. Last time out in the CCA Oaks, she ran away from the field by 4.5 lengths. When she gets into the stretch, she digs in and she goes. It's definitely a sorry, I'm getting notifications left and right. I've got a lot going on. She just has a lot of class in her running style, and she doesn't like to give in. She knows what's asked of her, and she just kind of runs on with it. And like I said, they're going to go quick early. You're going to see that in my selections later in this race, but I really do think that there's not a lot of world beaters in this male racing. I'm sorry, I'm literally getting blown up. There's not a lot of world beaters. And we talked about the 8 fierceness, and we talked about the 8 fierceness in the Kentucky Derby. We talked about him in the Belmont as well. This is a horse that wants to go, and when he has the race all by himself and has his running style all by himself, he's a tough colt to beat. But running from that 8 post, going 2 turns, there's a lot of speed in this race. I really don't think that he's going to have everything his own way. And we've talked about it in previous races. I don't think that he's he has that running style to be able to sit off the pace. So I really like what Torpedo Anna has done. I don't think her buyer speed figures are doing her justice. I think she's going to get a much better buyer speed figure running against the boys here tomorrow. So my top pick is the 1 Torpedo Anna. And my second choice, we've heard this name a lot. We heard it in the Belmont. We heard it in the Derby. The number 2 Sierra Leone definitely lugs in a little bit. We saw the bit change, the equipment change with what he did in the Belmont going up into the Jim Dandy. Now we get Flavian Pratt running for the 3rd time for this horse trained by Chad Brown. So, like I said, I think they're going to be cooking early. I think they're going to go too fast. I hope that Torpedo Anna can be involved in that pace and just kind of shy these horses away. But who's going to come running? That's the 2 Sierra Leone at 7-2. So that's going to be my second choice. And my third choice is going to be another horse that's I think is going to be involved in that pace, and that's the 7 Dornoch. And I really like what he did in the Grade 1 Haskell. He was never left alone in the Haskell. He was basically eyeballed the entire way around. And what did he do but win by a length and a quarter? It wasn't necessarily, a head bob at the end. He was able to put away Mindframe and Timberlake, and neither one of those horses are, you can't shy your head or your nose away from those horses. Those are very quality type colts. And so I don't necessarily want to get beat by Dordock. I am going to try and beat him on the win in, but that's going to be where my third choice lands. And instead of landing on the 8 Fierceness as my fourth choice, I really like the 4 Corporate Power at 15-1. This is another horse that doesn't want anything to do with the front end. He's probably going to be a little bit closer than Sierra Leone, but this is a horse that has some of the better closing running styles, closing figures, if you will. Maybe not necessarily as good as Sierra Leone, but this is a horse at least 15-1 with Javier Castellano that I think is going to be rolling late, maybe rounds out our trifecta. And so instead of using the 8 Fierceness, I'm going to use the 4 Corporate Power at 15-1 to round out my fourth choice. And I'll just jump into my trifecta. I'm just going to use the 1 and 2 up front. I really like Torpedo Anna. I think that she's going to be able to shy these colts away. And if she doesn't, I think the 2 Sierra Leone's going to come rolling. So I'm going to use 1, 2 up top, 1, 2, 7 in second, and 1, 2, 4, 7, 8 in third. So it's 1, 2 in first, with 1, 2, 7 in second, and 1, 2, 4, 7, 8 in third. For 50 cents, that only costs you $6. I'm not using the favorite Dornock in first. I'm not using the second choice 8 Fierceness in first or second. So it definitely can be a trifecta that can pay a little bit, a little juicy of a payout, especially talking about an 8 horse race.
So obviously this race here is the granddaddy of them all till next week, obviously, and the Pacific that we'll be talking about next Friday. My question to you is, this race here alone will tell us a lot, correct me if I'm wrong here, for the Classic in November.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't believe it's a win and you're in. It may be. I probably should have looked at that before we jumped on. But yeah, I mean, let's be real. When we're talking about 3-year-olds and up running on the dirt track at a classic distance, these are the type horses that whether it's the Travers, whether it's the Pacific Classic, whoever's the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic is most likely going to come out of either the Travers that we're talking about or the Pacific Classic that we're going to talk about next week.
So obviously, if Torpedo Anna wins or has a great showing, the assumption would be that would be running with the boys also come Breeders' Club.
I mean, I would assume so. Again, it's really going to all come down to how she comes out of this race. Are there any, we call them warm spots as far as, where is she hurting anywhere? Is she eating her feed? It's really up to the trainers and the owners. But yeah, if she wins the Grade 1 Travers and then she wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, her breeding fee is going to go through the roof. So we're talking millions and millions of dollars for those owners. Definitely jealous. But yeah, I would assume that, yeah, they would point to the Breeders' Cup Classic and then most likely retire her after that race.
Well, the scroller was going the whole time. We got the trifecta right there, but go follow Sean on Twitter at SmoothTurn2. But how I always end here is it's your stage, it's your platform. Tell them what you got at WagerTalk, sir.
Yeah, I'm the horse racing guy at WagerTalk. So if you want anything at Del Mar or Saratoga, my page is wt.buzz/SA. That's a direct link to my page. I'll have Saratoga Del Mar up daily, unless I think that the card doesn't necessarily play or provide good betting races. I'm not here to sell you something that I don't think is a good thing to bet on. If I think it's a good betting card, it will be up on my page within 2 to an hour before first post. So head over to my page, wt.buzz/SA, and let's cash some winners at Del Mar and Saratoga.
S.A. Sean Alvarez, S.A. Santa Anita. I mean, it goes hand in hand, brother.
It does. It does.
3 o'clock, Matt Grissom and potentially Quentin Mills, the return of the NCAA Insiders. It's not baseball, it's football, SEC and week 0 there. We can't thank Sean enough. We'll be back, obviously, next Friday to talk the Pacific Classic. But till then, for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one, the only, Mr. Sean Alvarez at Smooth Turn 2. We wish everyone a blessed day. Come on back at 3 o'clock. Go have lunch, and we'll see you soon.